because so many members of the community were fundamentally anonymous, you don't know who they are, you could make the case, and many people have made the case, that most of the advocates who had anonymous accounts were run by somebody like Greg Maxwell. Or, I like to use Greg as he is the perennial, every character whose face I can't see and whose name I don't know is Greg. And it's a little bit of a meme. Like I do that for the sake of humor, but it's also illustrative in that a good number of them probably are Greg. The really effective ones are. And the reason for that is he was doing a similar thing a decade earlier at the Wikimedia Foundation. And he was doing these for all kinds of weird geopolitical issues. So he'd be talking about little wars in third world countries, or here's what the World Economic Forum is up to, or here's why the UN is doing these things. He'd be modifying Wikipedia articles to fit some narrative for some reason, which has led to a lot of the accusations that he is, perhaps some kind of CIA or NSA spook. There is interesting evidence for that, but it's probably unprovable. But ultimately, he became one of the co-founders of Blockstream, one of the biggest voices in advocating for small blocks forever. Here's why all traffic needs to move to L2. By the way, we should be the ones that control these layer 2 networks and all these other things. And so Greg kind of became this meme for the Sybil attack, meaning that, if I posted, hey, Bitcoin should have an 8 megabyte block size limit, that there'd be 50 accounts that would show up and not only say you're wrong, but also you're a liar, you're probably funded by Coinbase or Barry Silbert or Roger Ver. You're probably you're just getting paid. You're a paid shill.
Like
you're a
Craig
scammer.
Wright.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And some of them get, X-rated expletive about what you're doing to Craig, and, when the lights are out, like that kind of thing. And it shuttles the narrative away from the actual conversation about what Bitcoin is for and why we might care about it. And they're very, very successful at cutting out people who knew the history of Bitcoin, and people knew that Bitcoin was always supposed to scale on chain. It was supposed to do all the things that like Ethereum ever does, or Solana, or all these other things, all these chains that exist today. Everything should have been happening on Bitcoin. And today, almost none of it happens on BTC at all. And ultimately, it led to the splitting of first Bitcoin Cash and then ultimately Bitcoin SV, which all have varying skill sets in tokens, smart contracts, scalability, et cetera. BSV way out ahead on its ability to do all those extra interesting things. I argue that it is the only surviving implementation of the real Bitcoin, but that's hyper contentious, as you're well aware. And I think the audience should really look at it, study the Civil War, and make their own decision.